Alright, I just got done episode 12 of season 1 of the Clone Wars. Now, if you don't know, I'm doing a review of every single episode in the Clone Wars, starting with season 1, going all the way to season 7. This is episode 12's review. Now, the whole premise continues from episode 11, where Dooku was captured, only to find out that Obi-Wan and Anakin accidentally drank a little too much, you know? It seems like all the drinks were spiked at that party, or the bar. So they end up imprisoned along with Dooku, and probably the first question that goes to your brain is, why isn't Dooku killing them? But he explains later in the episode, it's actually more useful for him to keep them alive, because they are all connected to the same chain. So if for some reason Dooku ended up killing them, or one of them ended up dying, you'd be dragging a whole other dead body with you, which is a lot harder to do than walking around with them. Great explanation for why Dooku doesn't just go ahead and kill the two main characters. Same reason why Anakin and Obi-Wan don't do the same thing. Now, this episode, for me, showed a lot of great parts about the Clone Wars, on how they're very, very good at doing two different plot lines at the same time. So we had the whole prison escape attempt, number 1, number 2, and the final attempt, which ended up happening because the power went out. But the power only goes out because of the second event happening throughout the whole episode, which is Jar Jar Binks leading a expedition, I guess, or I guess, what do they call it? Delivering the ransom, basically, and being a representative from the Senate. Now, the reason why he's a representative is because this three-eyed googly monster, I don't remember their names, the race names, but this senator ends up dying, and because Jar Jar Binks is a senator, he's actually ranked higher than all of the clones, so the clones technically follow his order, which is a cool little reasoning on why they follow Binks, even though Binks is portrayed as an idiot throughout every single episode. But we all know he's the true Sith Lord. He has all the master plans behind the scenes. I mean, he saved some of the clones from that acid pit. He saved them from when they were getting shot at. You know, he purposely went into the cockpit in order to avoid those two missiles, so that they only hit the engines rather than hitting the hull. We all know Jar Jar Binks thinks 3 steps ahead, just like Nikocado Avocado. He's always 2 steps ahead at minimum. So we all know this. Jar Jar Binks, the true Sith Lord. You know, he's got everything planned, even Palpatine's death. But with all that being said, yeah, this episode was really good. Sucks for this senator, by the way. Really sucks for these three-eyed guys. I swear to God, every time I've seen them, they just always die. I swear, every single episode or movie they're introduced in, they're always seen dying in that movie or episode. Really sucks for these guys. But, you know, it is what it is. W clone armor. Can't really see it because of the way I have the screen here, but oh my God, this captain's clone armor is insane. Yeah. Just another W fucking clone design. All their clone designs are absolutely insane in terms of quality. I love the paint jobs they do with every single clone in the Clone Wars. But yeah, whole thing was Hondo, the pirate, as I learned his name. Pretty funny character, pretty quirky character. I like how he's a pirate, but he at least will adhere to some sort of honor agreement, as long as he's the one who benefited from it. You know what I mean? I think it was a cool little plot twist at the end, because basically what happens throughout this episode is that Hondo has his little pirate gang. Pirate gang tries to double cross Hondo after Hondo ends up capturing Dooku and the two Jedis. Then once he has them captured, they attempt a few escapes, but never works out until Jar Jar Binks shows up with his clone squad. They're supposed to show up and give the ransom spice, which is just like drugs. All right, teaching kids this, little interesting. You know, it is what it is, I guess. 2008 was a different time period, but yeah, so Jar Jar Binks and the Clone Squad pull up. The double crossers of Hondo, the pirate leader, decided to shoot down the ship, and they were going to take the spice for their own. One of them chickened out, and then Hondo's double crosser, don't remember his name, dude with the yellow bandana, decides to go ahead and try to take the spice for himself. In the process of doing that, Jar Jar Binks is able to run away with a few clones, and the commander, I guess, the Senate, unfortunately dies on the crash. And then Jar Jar Binks tries to surrender himself to the next fleet of bandits that come and try to take the spice. But what ends up happening is Jar Jar Binks agrees to the surrender. He clumsily, he falls into a few areas in one of the tanks, and then the tanks end up shooting each other, and then they knock out the power grid, which in turn finally release Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Dooku from their chains. Dooku has a nice exit. Normally he's the guy to have a really cool entrance. Sith are, normally badass entrance, and then they get defeated. But this was a pretty cool time where he had a really cool exit. General Grievous normally cowers away like a little chicken man. It's nice to see Dooku leave with some sort of impression. He shows up, he force chokes one of them, forces him to shoot one of the Hondo backstabbers, and he boards the ship. They originally shot down the carrier. A lot of nice little connections you can make between the two plot lines this whole episode. But yeah, it was a great episode overall. I'd probably rate it like an 8 out of 10. It's just solid. I wouldn't rank it any higher, only because I do enjoy Hondo and I do enjoy the clone armor and everything. But it misses something, and I don't know what that is. It's hard to explain. It's like when you're watching a really good anime or something, and just all of a sudden you're like, man, this is mid as fuck. You know what I mean? But in this case, it's not that it's mid as fuck. It's just, it's missing something, Like, there needs to be, I think something in this. Maybe it's because Hondo was showcased in episode 11, and that's why, Hondo being a little bit more honorable, being a little bit more charismatic in this episode, kind of doesn't hit as well as it did for episode 11. Or it could be the fact that almost all of these characters, other than the clones, are already, they're not brand new. There's not really a new character added into this, like the new character, like the Senator, he dies fairly early on, and the commanders, to some extent, are new, but it's just kind of like, they do commander things. This is one of the commanders that doesn't really get a big name throughout the Clone Wars. So, overall, thought it was a pretty good episode. Solid 8 out of 10. Nothing really bad about this episode, but nothing that strikes it as being super unique. It is a very interesting idea. The reason why it's an 8 out of 10, not something like a 5 out of 10, is because it does have that interesting idea of Dooku, Obi-Wan, and Anakin constantly bickering amongst each other, but at the end of the day, they do think that they need each other in order to escape. But by the end of the episode, you find out they actually don't really need each other to escape. They just needed a little bit of Jar Jar Binks, luck, as he calls it. But yeah, overall, really sweet episode. You don't get a lot of opportunities in many shows to have the main villain and the main protagonist basically be forced to be allies. It's very rare we see that these days. I think it's a very much like a 2012 and under sort of plot line, but overall I do think it worked. I think it was pretty good. And yeah, with all that being said, this was episode 12, the Gungan General. Fucking Jesus, hold on. That was a baby spider. You didn't see that? Anyways, yeah, with all that being said, it was a great episode. I enjoyed it. Was missing that sort of oomph, I guess, that the GOAT episodes deserve, in my opinion. But yeah, I do think solid 8 out of 10. With all that being said, want to thank you for making it to the end of this video, watching the review, and as always, I hope you have a good day.